Hey everyone, I am Kim McLaughlin and welcome to Food Freedom Live. It is day 2 and I don't know any of you that were here yesterday. Oh my goodness, we had a power outage in my area. There was construction down the street and they must have taken out everything in the path. So the electricity went down, so I couldn't do our Food Freedom Live. And I apologize for any of you that came and tried to come on live. It was everything goes out when the power goes out. It's fascinating. So I recorded it, and you should have already gotten an email that has the recording on it. And today's email that goes out later, you'll have the recording to day 1 and day 2. Actually, you'll get a copy of every day. So don't worry if you can't be here live. There is opportunities to see the things. And I don't close down the videos. I know sometimes people will have it up for only like 24 hours or so. I don't do that. I just figure you'll see it when you see it. So that is what we do. I'm going to do a screen share to start. I also want you to know that tomorrow is day 3 and we're talking about mindfulness. So Friday we talk about mindfulness. On Monday, we're doing a Q&A call. So I am going to send out today in the email a document for you to put down any questions that you have so we can have it. It's not, I get it. There's no time that's 100% for everybody to come to. So I want to make sure that if you have questions, and I bet you do, that you get your questions answered. And so I will put a document in that if you cannot attend live, or even if you're not sure, but send out the questions and I will make sure to answer them on the call on Monday. So let's get started. I'm going to do a share screen with our PowerPoint because I like to do, hold on, let me get this over here. I like to do it where we can see what's going on and we can do it together. Let me see. There we are. I'm trying to see if I can get myself in the mix. Hold on a second. There is the reading minutes seem to be showing up as what you're seeing rather than me. So I apologize for that. We're, always technology. So let's get started. Here is day 2. And today we're talking about emotional eating. And I thought it's interesting that we're talking about emotional eating because yesterday, when all the power went out and I'm supposed to do a live class, that I had a lot of feelings, and I thought, well, this is an interesting thing to have that show up and to really talk about how to move through emotions in a way that settles the emotions rather than having them come full force in your face. So let's do this. Hold on. I can't seem to get it to move forward. There we go. Who am I? I am Kim McLaughlin. I am a psychotherapist in the state of California. I am a coach. I'm a podcaster. The Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast is my podcast. And I'll have to give you guys the link to that because it is a way to learn more about what we do. I am also an author. Feed Your Soul, Nourish Your Life, 6-Step System to Peace with Food was a bestseller on Amazon. So I'm super proud of that. I'm also a blogger. I like to write and give you lots of information. I'm also a former long-time dieter. I dieted most of my life. If you hear my longer story, there is definitely a time where I was a dieter and didn't know what else to do. Let me put it that way. So when we start with emotional eating, it's like people don't always know if they're an emotional eater or not. And I like to have that conversation because it can be hard to know. It can be hard to know if you're an emotional eater or not because we sometimes think we just eat because we want to, or because it tastes good, or or. And there are lots of reasons that lead people to overeat that are emotional that you don't necessarily know. So here are some definitions to help you determine if you are an emotional eater. Do you eat when you're not hungry? And that can be hard to evaluate because you're not always coming from a place of knowing if you're hungry. And that's about being connected with your body. We talked about that yesterday when we talked about dieting, that dieting really moves us off of feeling comfortable in our body and feeling able to know if we're hungry or not. So this is part of the problem. It's part of the problem. Another definition is, are you using food to make you feel good? Are you using food to make you feel good? It can be that thing where I don't feel so good and I want to have food. Like when you're unhappy, you eat. When you're happy, you eat. When you celebrate, you eat. When you're sad, you eat. When you're lonely, you eat. When you're bored, you eat. So you try and use food to make yourself feel good because there is this time between when you eat and when you don't, when you eat and then feeling good at that point in time after you eat. It just happens. It's part of what happens with food, right? Let me see. Let's move forward. There you go. Do you use food in situations where you feel uncomfortable? This is what happens when we're feeling uncomfortable. Yesterday, I felt uncomfortable that I couldn't get the live to go live because there was no electricity. And I felt really uncomfortable. I felt upset and overwhelmed and sad. And I felt it and I acknowledged it. And I actually did a live talking about how I felt, about how hard it was. And that is one way, we're going to talk about that later. That is one way to get clearer on your feelings and feeling hungry. And it was interesting to me having that happen yesterday because I could really acknowledge that I felt sad and scared and upset. And I also felt hungry, and I could separate the two out and go, okay, what do I need to do about my emotions? And then ultimately, what do I need to do about my hunger? I generally don't eat before I do a live talk. I tend to feel a little nervous before I talk. So I didn't have any food. And so afterwards, and after I expressed how I felt, I dealt with how I felt, I was able to eat and eat fine and eat cleanly without anything, without overeating. Another definition of are you an emotional eater is, are you eating to overfull? Are you eating to being too full? And that once again is where you have to come in touch with your body and know, what is my body feeling like? How do I recognize when I'm hungry or full? That's what we go in depth in Emotional Eating Solutions, my 8-week course. We talk about and actually have a plan. How do you determine when you're too hungry, when you're satiated, when you're full, when you're overfull? We have ways to figure that out. And that becomes your guidepost to determining, am I overfull? Another way to know if you're an emotional eater is, do you feel ashamed when you overeat? Does that feeling of, I'm not a good person, there's something wrong with me, I should have done it differently, does that show up for you? And that's connected to, we talked yesterday about the diet cycle, where you start with deprivation, starvation, you move into binging at some point in time, and then you move into shame and guilt. And the only way we know how to manage that shame and guilt about overeating and about our bodies is we have to diet and restrict. And then it becomes this cycle that we can never get out of because we're in the cycle. So that ashamed feeling is something really important to pay attention to because it can lead you to overeat. Another one is about emotional eating is, do you feel bad? Do you feel upset? Do you feel sad about your body, about how you look, about your weight, not feeling good enough, not feeling comfortable in your body? And I get that there is a certain size where it's like it's hard to move around, and I understand that, but feeling bad about who you are based on your body size is is really something that's not going to help you. It's not going to help you. And we talk about that once again a lot in terms of self-love and self-love in terms of our body size. So what I think of with this is eating should make you feel good, not bad. It should make you feel good and satisfied and like you have enough food and you feel like you got the nourishment to do the things you do. You nourish your body to give you energy, to give you your brain power, all the things. So it should make you feel good, not bad. Identifying the problem can lead you to ask the question, what should I do? Right? Now that we say, I think I'm an emotional eater, well, then what should I do? And we're going to go through a few steps of what you can do. This is where I like to give you ideas of what to do so that you can start doing this on your own and see what you can come up with. First, notice you're eating for emotional reasons, right? That's the starting spot. Pay attention to your eating. And if you're meeting the criteria we had just talked about, begin to look deeper at what's going on. So first is noticing, are you eating for emotional reasons? Second, acknowledge that you're emotional eating and that it's a problem, that it causes problems with food for you, and just acknowledge it. We don't have to shame ourselves and say, I'm bad about it or have a negative opinion. It's just acknowledge. And what can happen is there's that healing that comes from this acknowledgement. Healing really comes from the acknowledgement. And then you can do something about it. You identify it, you acknowledge it, and then start looking into what can I do. And I'm here to suggest, if you're here on this live, that we want to do something beyond and besides dieting, because dieting just keeps you in that cycle of restriction, binge, guilt, restriction, binge, guilt, and it never ends. Remember, we talked yesterday about, what did we say? It was a $255 billion industry and growing. The weight loss industry would not be growing if it worked. The weight loss industry would not be growing and making more money if it worked. And I just want to kind of let that sit with you. Third thing you can do is start to identify your feelings. And this becomes a little more complicated because we don't always have the words to describe how we're feeling. And some of the easy labels for feelings are sad, mad, happy, anxious, bored, lonely, tired. I find bored, lonely are often two of the feelings that definitely lead many, many people, especially in the evening, to overeat, to emotionally eat, is that bored feeling, that lonely feeling. And we can feel bored and lonely even in the midst of other people and even in the midst of activity, but just not feeling satisfied within ourselves. But start coming up with some of those easy labels that just go, how am I feeling? Once again, yesterday when I was going through the electricity being out, I started to check in, go, how are you feeling, Kim? Because I could feel myself feeling overwhelmed, overloaded, anxious, scared, confused. Those were my feelings. And I named them. And then once I noticed them, I acknowledged them, I named them, then I could do something about them, right? Then I could move into the next step. And the next step is ask those emotions, what are they trying to tell you? There's this voice to the feelings that they are there to give us information. The feelings are about information. They're information about what's going on, and they're trying to tell you what you need to know. They're not there to bring havoc in your life. They're literally there to say, Kim, you're feeling anxious and scared and overwhelmed. What's going on? Well, the electricity's out. You need to do a live. Okay, so what do you need to do right now to move into more of a place of peace? Which for me, Kim, I tend to want to move into a place of peace and joy are the two things I like to move into. So I started to make a plan. These are the things I'm going to do. This is how I'm going to make the rest of the day happen. And the Food Freedom Live Masterclass, this is how I'm going to make it happen. So the feelings gave me information that then I could say, okay, so what am I going to do? And for me, once I made the plan, I felt more confident, right? The feelings switched into confidence and assuredness. Follow the advice. So the fifth idea is follow the advice of those feelings. Generally, the feelings tell you when you're out of balance, right? I was out of balance yesterday. And depending on the feelings, you can be steered into what needs to be done to take care of the emotion. What I found yesterday is that when I felt overwhelmed and scared and out of control, it's like I needed to take a deep breath. And for me, what needed to be done was make a plan. I don't feel overwhelmed if I have a plan. I don't feel overwhelmed if I know what's coming next. What am I going to do? That helps me a lot with that feeling. And that comes from, for me, I have a wellness toolbox. And there are things that I know that will help me figure out what to do. And what I did yesterday was I got into action. I started talking with people about what are some options. I started to evaluate those options. I had somebody I bounced some ideas off of, and that helped me figure out what would I do next. So that all is a part of my wellness toolbox. And that is something I learned a long time ago, is one of the saving graces that I have, that really it helps me figure out what do I do in situations. And we actually have that as one of the bonuses in emotional eating solutions. We talk about at the end, once you learn all the strategies and all the ideas, then you put them in your toolbox and you pull out your toolbox whenever you need it. So then you have an opportunity to create more of that peace and joy and freedom with food. So that is 5. We gave you 5 steps. And within each of the steps, I gave you lots of different options. I recommend that you start doing it. I think it's not okay that we just have the information. We got to use the information. I always call them, if you listen to the Feed Your Soul with Kim podcast, I talk about doables. Like, what's a doable? What are you going to do? Because having insight and information and ideas takes you so far, but then what am I going to do? It doesn't have to be a big step. It can be just, what's my next little right step? What is my next little right step? And I want you to consider, like, can you do these things on your own? The 5 ideas I just gave you about freedom with emotions with food, start doing them. See how that goes. And that is a way for you to see, can I do it on my own? I suspect if you're here, you haven't been able to, or you've been caught up in that diet mindset that really gets us going in all kinds of directions. So what I think of is the 6 components, and we talked about them yesterday. So I'm going to go briefly over them, but that if you want to get that emotional eating solution, if you want to empower yourself with emotions, there are 6 steps, or the 6 components: physical, emotional, mental, lifestyle, mindfulness, and self-love. Those are the totality of having this overall wellness. And what I find is interesting is that we've had this problem with food for a long time, probably since you were really, really little. And it hasn't gone away. It most especially doesn't go away with dieting. What I find is that as we focus on these 6 components, we actually empower our whole life. It's not just about the food. The food is just the thing that shows up as the difficulty, but we have this different way now of approaching our lives. And that's what I want for you. The food is the doorway. Janine Roth talks about that. Janine Roth talks about the food is the doorway to having a different life. So what is Emotional Eating Solutions? It is 8 weeks of video recordings in our members only portal. And these recordings are released each week. So you have generally within each component, there's about anywhere five videos. They're up to about 10 minutes a piece. What's nice is that they're broken up into chunks. So you can go in and learn whichever section you want to learn and then move on to the next. So you don't have to have one large meal, so to speak. You can take them in little bite-sized chunks and you can listen to them at your leisure. You have the flexibility. And so week 1 is released on week 1. Week 2 is released on week 2. I find that it helps be that way because then you're not overwhelmed with, oh my gosh, there's all of this stuff. I don't know what to do. So we release it on a weekly basis. And then what we also do is offer up assignments. And that is not complicated, but it's something, again, it's a doable. You got to get into action to have a doable. And that is one way to do it. And I do talk about it in Emotional Eating Solutions. If you feel resistance to doing that doable, that's the time to check in with yourself about, I'm feeling resistance. What's going on for me? What is this resistance trying to tell me, right? Just when we talked about emotions earlier in this call. The other part we have to Emotional Eating Solutions, which I love, is our monthly group coaching call. And it is a deeper dive into your emotional eating solutions. You can attend live and ask me your question, or you can send in a question virtually and I will answer it. It's voluntary to come. And I know that can be scary sometimes to do that, but it's your way of getting questions answered with me. Either live with me or you send in your question and I will answer it. And what's cool about our member portal is that you have access to all the previous coaching calls, all the information that we have, you get that. And the bonus you have is the wellness plan, which keeps you on track, keeps you going long after you've stopped the program. The good thing also about the program, I should put that in, I don't have that listed, but that you get lifetime access to it. At this point, we have lifetime access to it. You always can log back in. You can come every month to the group coaching call. Lifetime access is lifetime of the program. However long the program goes on, and I have no plans to end it, that you have access to all of the information. That means you still should go through the modules in the portal on a timely basis because you want to get all the learning. And lastly, what we're adding is an Emotional Eating Solutions playbook. And this is your play-by-play each week. What are you going to do? What are you going to do differently? And it's going to be in like a journal format where you can, or workbook style, where you can write down what's going on for you. I would love to have you join. It is only $297. It's super affordable. It's less than 1 hour of coaching with me. The price is increasing, and this is the reason to get in now. And it is going to really help you in your life and make a significant change. So I really invite you to join us. We talked about this. Other people have talked about how they don't like themselves and how this program really helped them look at a different way of thinking about themselves and really feeling better about themselves. And that to me is the greatest praise I could get. Moving off of just it being about food, but really moving into, I like myself and I look in the mirror and I like what I see. That is great praise. So I want to end the sharing and see if you can see me now. Yeah, I am so pleased that you joined us. I like to have these run on time and we go for about a half hour. So I thank you for being here. I really hope you utilize the tools. I would love to have you email me info@feedyoursoulunlimited.com and let me know what you learned. What are your takeaways? What are you trying differently? I really want to know what is working for you. So we're going to be here tomorrow. We're going to talk about mindfulness. Don't think it's some woo-woo stuff. It is literally how you get back connected with your body in order to experience peace with food and have that food freedom that I know you're looking for. I will send out this recording later on today. Thank you all for being here with us, those that are live and those that are going to watch later. I really appreciate you, and I am so excited to hear about all the things that you're learning that you are going to do to increase food freedom in your life. Bye. I'll see you tomorrow.